So Kevin, we just went through the funeral. It was probably about a week later. And I had met Jerry Howarth on the field at Comerica Park working for the Tigers. And Jerry knew who I was because I was Canadian and I played professional baseball, got to the big leagues. And I knew Jerry just because I knew he was the legendary voice of the Blue Jays. But I would see him on the field, quick hello, how are you? Great. And that was about it. So he knew who I was. I knew who he was. But out of the blue, it's a week after our funeral, and I get an email from Jerry. And it's just an email of condolences. So sorry for your loss. And said, look forward to seeing you. And we're in Detroit next year because I would see him down on the field. So I replied to him and just said, thanks so much. Very kind of you. And I wish I could remember the exact words, but I remember just saying, like, thanks so much. And at the end of the email, and I said, look forward to seeing you too. And I said, or maybe in the broadcast booth one day. I made a comment like that. And I still to this day, like it wasn't anything to do with broadcasting. It's just because Jerry was a broadcaster and I was just being goofy, I think. I don't know why I wrote what I wrote. I don't even know what I wrote, but it was something along those lines or typed. And he replied to that email. And I do remember it being like immediate. I think it was like in a minute. And it said, how about right now? I think I'm reading this email. I was in my kitchen right here. My wife, we were in a fog, right? We're still. And I'm reading this, and I think he went on to kind of say how they were actually, Jack Morris had just left the radio booth in like January. So this is mid-February and or early February. And I think they were going through the process of hiring an analyst. And he said, how about right now? As in like throw my hat in the ring. And I remember looking at my wife saying, I might have like a job opportunity. And I think she looked at me like, what are you talking about? So back and forth with the emails. And then Jerry puts me in contact with Don Collins, the program director for 590 The Fan, and said that, he's away or whatever. He'll give me a call over the weekend or Monday morning, whatever. So sure enough, Monday morning, my phone rings. And, back in the day, we have got a home phone and the display says Sportsnet or 590 The Fan or something. And it's Don Collins. And I'm thinking, okay. So he proceeded. We talked probably for about a half hour. And by the end of the phone call, Don was just so kind and nice and hearing about our story. And we were talking mostly about what we just went through. And by the end of the phone call, he said, Joe, I think right now you've got a lot on your plate. Why don't you just be home with your family where you need to be? And, maybe one time throughout the summer, we'll bring you up to Toronto, come with your wife, maybe we'll show you the studios, show you how things work and just kind of introduce you to it. And I said, yeah, sounds good. Well, then he called back a few days later and he said, would you be interested in doing like some games or like auditioning or coming on our show? So I went on with Jeff Blair and I think they just wanted to hear me.
Yeah.
So of course I'm going on the show thinking I'm not really a Blue Jays fan. I'm a Tigers fan. So I better get a little well-versed on the Blue Jays here. I remember scrambling, going to the websites. And so I go on with Blair. And now I knew Jeff from our Montreal days. He was a writer for the Gazette in Montreal when I played there. So I knew Jeff. That helped a little bit. And anyway, it went well. Probably a 10-minute interview went well. And afterwards, that's where Don was kind of like pursuing it, called me again and said, well, do you want to, maybe we'd like you to come to Florida and maybe do a few games. I'm like, okay. So I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, what do you think of this? She's like, I think we're both like rolling our eyes, like what's going on here? So can you come to Florida to do a few games? Sure. So how long should I pack for? Just, for a few games or whatever. So then it was going to be, I think it was maybe like a week from then I was going to go down because, spring training's around the corner. Well, he calls back. He says, any chance you could get on a plane Wednesday? Or it was like a day or two from the time he called. Sure, I guess. Why not?
Yeah.
So by this time, I think too, these were lots of calls back and forth. And I think by this time I said, you know what? I'm diving headfirst into this thing. I mean, we already had that, like I said, we were in a fog, probably not thinking straight. But I think I remember to myself just saying, you know what, I'm just going to dive headfirst into this thing and say, yes, I'm available. I'll be there for anything you want, whatever. So I think I remember telling him, finally, one of our phone calls, I said, like, yes, I can come to Florida. I can stay the whole spring if you want. And if I'm hired, I can do the full 162 if you want. Like, I'm in. Let me know what you need. Anyway, so again, here's my long story of trying to get a little shorter. I go down to Florida. First game I'm doing with Jerry, it's in Clearwater against the Phillies. Blue Jays take batting practice on their field in Dunedin. And Jerry's walking down the right field line with me and basically in about 15 or 20 minutes, giving me the broadcasting 101. And oh my God, it was probably the best 20 minutes of my broadcasting career because sure, I knew I was confident and comfortable with my insight and analysis of baseball. I know the game, but broadcasting, like all the broadcasting tricks, when to come in with your comment, when to get out, make sure you allow him to call the pitch, all these things in radio that you have to be aware of. So he He gave me the best lesson in broadcasting in about 20 minutes. It was unbelievable. So we go do the game, and I mean, to this day, I can't imagine listening back to that game, but hopefully I'm much improved now. But the game went well. I thought it went well. Did it again the next day, and after the game, my Don gives me a call and he said, "I'd like to meet you for dinner," and I was offered the job. So, long story
Wow.
short, it came together really fast. But again, to this day, because of Jerry being such a kind human being that he is, and reaches out to this basically stranger to offer his condolences, who would have ever thought that it would lead to what it led to?